Hello, everyone. Welcome. Hap's back. Navjack, thank you for the 38 months on a 17-month streak. Floors Lava, thank you for the 71 bits. Dark Rift, hello. Yarutaru, hello. Coffee. Abelrassi, hello. Dark Mex, welcome. Chaboy J, hello, hello. Hello, Cardinal. Hello, Satan. Oh yeah, Twitch told me that I would run less ads if I added all of the content classifications to my stream. So here we are. Fuck Twitch. Hello, Marmot. Was this useful? Hello, Bivork. Hello, Mark. Oh, hi, Mark. Hello, Mac. Hello, Sang Dream. Buddy. Happy Stanissy. Yeah, because if they can't match you with there's a good one. Look at that. If they can't match you with with an advertiser, they don't have any ads to serve. What are they gonna do? Serve advertisements for fucking Amazon themselves? So they told me it would run less ads, and I was like, you know what? Good. Maybe that'll give people some reprieve and take some money out of Twitch's pocket. Speaking of which, I did some napkin math on just me, right? On how much I've had enough Caillou. I did some napkin math on the VOD thing, like how much I anticipate my VODs were this way. Yeah, there we go. It's like uneven. Thank you, BNU. Thank you for the ambassador tips. By the way, chat, here's what you were promised. It's a duck. I got it from the duck machine. I was given it for free. Thank you, staff at the barcade. I was like, hey, does the duck machine work? All right, see you later, Jay. I was like, does the duck machine work? And they were like, yeah, I think so. Why, did it eat your dollar? And I was like, no, I hadn't tried it yet. I wanted to make sure it was like that it was functional before I put my dollar in it. Does it win often? And they were like, here, I'll give you a free go. It should win every time. And I got a duck. I got that duck. Anyway, oh, I should put the duck on the table so it can be seen from the stream. No, wait, can I carefully balance it here? There we go. Anyway, so, oh, this is actually really good. Look at this fucking duck's expression when it's looking straight at you. Anyway, wait, hold on. Do I have one of those handy? Do I have a handy? One might not be long enough. Let's see. The donut staring at you, yeah. Alright, here we go. I think this will work. Gonna move this up a little bit. There we go. Strapped in and ready for action. There's BNU, you'll appreciate this. There's two mice. There's two mice. My mother sent me two knitted mice to remind me of what I'm missing in Massachusetts. Oh wait, maybe I can like I need to figure out how I can. There we go. There we go. No. No Donk. Donk fucking sucks. I hate that game. Donk the samurai piece of shit for CD32. Hello, Cactus Bee. Anyway, what was I in the middle of saying? Hello, Eldritch. I think it says it's I think I just touched heaven, isn't it? Isn't that the lyric? More important is the like continue timer thing where like Donk is doing the running animation. I want that running animation as a fucking as an animated emote. Speaking of emotes, we got a new emote thanks to late night neural nonsense stuff. Yeah, there's a clip of that. There's a clip of that. You know what's cool? You know what's cool? Out here in Amish. So I got below 100 hours, and I was like, I should probably highlight my like first. I should highlight my first what's it stream? My first Shadowrun stream because I wanna preserve that. Hello, Twisted Mentat. I was like, I should probably highlight that. So I go to highlight it, and it turns out it was a higher number than the amount of hours that I had left. Cock Otoni MILF. And it turns out when you save a VOD, when you save a highlight, when you save a VOD that would put you over the limit, it just fails silently and doesn't tell you that it failed, which is really cool. Anyway, side note, there's a pretty good chance that Twitch is in a death spiral right now. There's like a pretty good chance of that. So probably start long-term planning for using probably YouTube. YouTube seems to be the only other stable platform on which live streaming would really like work. Not gonna happen. My guess is one of two cases is gonna happen. We're gonna get some really fucked up news within the next 3 weeks, and everybody's gonna panic. Or it's gonna take 2 to 3 years. One of those two cases. But I think that Twitch is kind of entering into territory from which they cannot recover. It's more likely, I think, that it'll take them longer, but I wouldn't wait for it. Yeah? Anyway, the reason I say don't panic yet is what you should be doing is what I did in September 2022, right? What I did in September 2022 is I started streaming once a week on YouTube. I started telling people about my YouTube channel, and I started pushing towards the specific goal of 500 subscribers and a high number of watch hours. Doing regular streams on YouTube made that much easier to do And since I plan on increasing the amount that I stream on YouTube, it would be wise of us as a community to organize around the times that we each can stream and what we each can, when we can stream, and how we can organize that. Right. It's because as a partner, as a YouTube partner, I do have the ability to do live redirects after streams, which can help other people and it can help grow the community. It helps keep a core block of people watching from one stream to another. It's the thing is, Jay, a large portion of your audience in particular is overlaps with my audience, and my audience also watches YouTube. They don't have a problem transitioning from one to the other. So it's likely that the people who would be likely to watch you from this community be likely to watch you on YouTube as well, as long as you announce it and make sure that people know when you're streaming. So, the most vocal members of your community are probably from here and shared. But don't discount the fact that you're pulling in more people than are chatting in your channel. You're past a point of critical mass to gain some amount of silent viewership that are your viewers alone. Otherwise, when you raid adjacent channels, it would show that your viewership is 0. It would show that the raid size is 0 because all the people would already be watching, right? So, however, my point is, don't panic because panic leads to poor decision making. For example, oh, that's what I was starting to say. I did a little napkin math. So when Twitch started the fucking VOD bullshit, I was like, right, Adrian? That's pretty good. Well, no, it's a good point to bring up, B, because avoiding panic is actually my point, right? Because I was doing the napkin math, and I was like, when Twitch started this VOD bullshit, I came to the conclusion, exactly, Cardinal. That is a very, very smart thing to do. And everybody go subscribe to everybody else's YouTube channels. So I was like, I've come to the conclusion that Twitch is not spending the money that I'm giving them wisely. They're squandering it, and they're pinching pennies in a... It is a historical truism that storage is cheap and transit is expensive in cloud computing. Storage is cheap. You hear this said frequently. And Twitch is pinching pennies on storage, and that's a very bad sign. So I went and I checked all my subscriptions. I was like, what are the derelict subscriptions that I've been keeping up just kind of as a matter of course? Who am I subscribed to whose streams I can't catch on a regular basis anymore because of the time zone change, because of my work schedule change? And I went through and I canceled 15 subscriptions. I canceled 15 recurring subscriptions at least $6 a piece. So, if we say, of those, nearly everyone is a 50-50 split, most... Because I mostly subscribe to... Right? Exactly. Exactly, Vivork. I can get my laser active, finally. But, if we figure that 15 subscriptions and half of that money is going to Twitch, right? Plus probably some amounts. Some amounts for Forex. Twitch lost a significant amount of money cutting down the amount of storage that I was using, and I'm 0.1%. Twitch lost a substantial amount of money from me personally for the subscriptions that I canceled due to their decision making. Because I was paying Twitch more money than my VOD storage was costing them every month by a substantial margin. So they lost revenue several times the savings in storage. Like, a fucking lot. So, it's indicative to me of one of two things. Either they're in real fucking financial trouble and they think that the hit to revenue is worth it, or two, they're fucking idiots. And either one of those two cases makes it real risky for the platform's continued existence. We've seen the long-term failure to grow for this platform for the past 2.5 years. And a platform with zero or negative growth over a 2.5-year time span, when they rely heavily on user population, that's really troubling. So Twitch isn't gonna go away. They're still the biggest. They're still the biggest player in the long-form streaming content marketplace. But I don't think they're healthy, and I think it's wise for us as a community to plan around their poor health. And not be like, I didn't want to think about it because it's a scary thing to think about, so I didn't do anything about it, right? And so now, when the bottom fell out, I'm not prepared, right? I spent the time preparing 2.5 years ago. I made that investment. I built software specifically for this purpose. I started streaming there. I started promoting my presence on YouTube for this specific purpose because I didn't trust that Twitch was going to be in good hands for the coming 2 years, right? And it's scary, right? A lot of people will lose their sources of income if the bottom falls out of Twitch, and I hope it doesn't. But it's one of those things that I would recommend that people prepare for, even if you don't have to eventually pursue it. It's better to be in a position where you're like, hey, you know what? I'm monetized on YouTube. Worst case scenario, all of my real core supporters can continue supporting me on YouTube for the content that I can produce on YouTube without a disconnect, without it dropping out. Yeah, that's true, Pivork. There are additional considerations there. Although I think that I think specifically YouTube is the platform of least concern, because if Google stops doing business globally, I don't think that Google is going to allow things to occur that would force them to stop doing business on a global scale. If you take my meaning there, right? I think it's the least risky of platforms. It's not some small business that can be bullied, and losing the global population as a market would be pretty substantial. Yeah, absolutely. It is a buffer, but it is still a concern. Absolutely agreed. But what I recommend to folks is, hold on, I gotta open up my YouTube so I can make sure I'm subscribed to all these lovely folks. What I would recommend is that you start spinning up your content as much as you can, and anything you've done that is unique or different, or the only evidence of a specific thing, or like a full playthrough of some weirdo game in a franchise that might get revived, that's the stuff that's probably going to do really well if you're moving content from Twitch to YouTube. That's the stuff I would prioritize. Is things that other people haven't done, because by default you will become the source for information about that. Which is important, because that is the way that I've gotten most of, like, a large portion of the watch hours and the subscribers that I have on YouTube, right? Spelljammer and Restricted Area alone responsible for a fairly large portion of that early on, especially. But yeah, subscribe to everybody. They're posting links in the Discord. Go subscribe to everybody. Hang out on YouTube. Check to see if people are streaming on YouTube. They frequently aren't, but when they are, if you go open that YouTube tab, it's going to help everybody out. Open up a tab with them on your YouTube. Also, there's certain things you can do with your, see if I can pull this up after I copy this link. Let me see if I can pull this up and show y'all. There's a thing you can do that's very, very helpful, and, like, somehow, like, fucking nobody knew about this, I guess. I gotta fix something. This shit. Okay. So here we go. Look at this. What am I looking at? BNU, is that the, like, is that a new thing in OBS? Multi-RTMP plugin, which lets you easily multi-stream to YouTube with completely different settings or different scene. Oh, that's sick. That's pretty cool. So you could multi-stream to YouTube and put, like, YouTube chat on YouTube and Twitch chat on Twitch and not fall foul of their restrictions. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, if you're gonna do multi-stream stuff, that's the way to go. I don't personally do multi-stream stuff because I've approached it differently. But that's probably the best place to start. Yeah, I wouldn't... The way I look at it is I don't aim to get away with things because I do not trust Twitch to, like... They haven't clarified meaning combining in text chat. No, they've been very clear that you are not allowed to combine on-screen chat. Like, that has been an example since day one. You can't do that. And I don't trust Twitch to, like, actually follow their own rules well for smaller creators. Anyway, here's the thing. Like, you might not get in trouble for it, but it's not worth risking your current source of revenue for it. So here's this thing. Under customization in YouTube Studio, there's this whole thing, right? This lets you set a bunch of stuff for, like, your channel and shit. Lets you set extra links that you should add. Lets you set contact information, a video watermark. You don't need to put a contact information. It is public, so it'll probably get scraped and get you a fuck ton of spam. Why I don't have anything in there. Set your banner image. Set your picture. Make sure your channel looks presentable. That's going to help a lot. If you haven't done that stuff. Don't just let it be a dumping ground. Like, actually put a little bit of effort into, like, images and stuff like that here. But here's the more important thing. The Home tab. So the Home tab here... the Home tab is really important. Because they let you customize all this shit. Right? This is shit that Twitch does not allow you to do. And it's really important that you leverage these features. Right? So... it lets you put live now, right? Which, we can, hold on. We can resize this. We can see it a little better on the content. Yep. Right? So this lets you organize the stuff on your channel. Let me change this music. This lets you organize the stuff on your channel page when people navigate to your channel. And most of the time, you won't have to worry about this stuff too much because you'll be in a position where, like, you're doing one thing on your channel at a time. You're not going to have too much stuff. However, you can do stuff like this, right? Where you basically say, where is the live now section going to appear while you're doing a live stream? This lets you promote live streams above, right? That lets you promote your live stream above your video content. So people will know that you're live when they visit your page, or they'll know that you're live when they're looking at your other content. Putting this literally at the top is probably the best thing to do. I don't know why For You was added up here. It's only visible when you have enough content, so it may be that I passed that content threshold recently. Anyway, live now, putting that at the top means that people will know when you're live compared to when you're posting videos. Super important. That means you don't have to separate to two channels like people repeat without evidence. Member recognition is once you get monetized on YouTube, you can, like, basically be like, hey, thanks to all these members for giving me money. And that's a nice thing, right? You can put that wherever you like. Then there's this. You can do specific playlist stuff. So, like, hey, like, here's all of the Japanese library exploration stuff in individual videos, so you can look at a 10 to 15 minute video and figure out what a specific game is about. It also lists the titles in English and Japanese, so it's really easy to navigate. And guess what? Once I started putting videos up in this format and put them in this playlist, views to this playlist and to the individual videos themselves increased substantially. People responded when I started putting stuff up in a really easily digestible format. Same thing here. Multiple playlists, which is full game playthroughs of multi-video games. So, for example, we have a playlist of Lands of Lore, we have a playlist of Elder Scrolls 2, we have a playlist of Crystal Beans, and so on. This lets people watch through these things, and if they're like, I want to watch a whole game, which ones does he have? They can go look at this section and see the whole list of games that I've completed in a really accessible format. I don't know how many people do that specifically, but it did increase traffic to other videos in the series of the games after the first, second, and last videos, which are usually the most common. It increased traffic to other videos in those playlists. This is a lot of work to set up because you have to like go in and create the playlists and add the videos to them and then add the playlists to the multiple playlist doc here. But in my opinion, if you plan on growing your YouTube channel and you have a lot of long plays of stuff that you've done on stream, it's worth it. Again, same thing, but single playlist of videos. The YouTube VTuber said they were instructed by their company to turn off DVR in their live streams so that users can't rewind the stream while it's live and remove their live view count. I haven't heard anything about that, and I don't know that that's particularly, like, worth the... Yeah. Because, like, they recently changed the Shorts algorithm to make it more permissive and to allow for other stuff. I would say don't fucking worry about it and leave that shit on. The other thing you can do, you can put a featured channels doc on here, which is like streamers you want to recommend to people on YouTube. So if you find people that are streaming frequently on YouTube, I would put them in this list because when they're live, they'll show up differently in this list. So yeah, and I would say it's something that I'm aiming to fix, but putting YouTube chat on screen will be a good fix for that because people will realize how behind they are if they chat. And there's a very easy way to catch up because there's one button for it. Right. Twitch's version of that sucks. Only under certain circumstances as well, Flora's Lava. And then I recommend putting your videos and your shorts way fucking down the page. Nobody gives a shit about, like, all of your videos in chronological order if you're doing organization tasks up here. Unless you're primarily a video content producer, in which case, then you're producing video content and people are like, oh, what's his latest video? So, that's not the only case in which you can't do it, Jay. There are other complications that make it so that you can't do that. It's annoying and, like, you can't predict when you won't be able to do it as a user. Anyway, spend some time doing your layout section here. It really, really helps, right? So, like, when you look at somebody's channel, you'll see all of this stuff. It'll look like this. But there's a lot more on like the featured channels, right? It's like there's lots of folks in here. And then videos and shorts are down here because videos and shorts only really get like huge boosts in viewership from search, from discovery, and from publishing, from subscribers at publish time. There's no reason for you to have all your videos way up here when there's more interesting shit you can put up here. Anyway, that's my brief like introduction to like setting up YouTube for your own success is to do that. Because most people don't do that, and they're like, YouTube discovery sucks, and it's like, no, you suck because you didn't fucking set it up right. Anyway, that's my state of Twitch 2025 thing. The thing I will say is if you're going to live stream to YouTube, make sure you're looking at YouTube chat. Don't let people on YouTube get like behind or like feel ignored. Yeah, that's what I was saying, Adrian, is if you look at my I haven't done it in a bit because it takes a bunch of work and I've been deep in the fucking VOD hole. But if you make playlists for all of your multi-part games and make a multi-playlist doc for them, it very well solves that problem. And also put the playlist link in each of the individual videos' descriptions. Oh man, speaking of, hold on. You know what's really fucking funny? Let me find this. Because oh shit, Mac. I gotta follow Mac. Wait, shit, I closed the window. Why I had that open in the first place. Sign back in. Not yet set up profile. Yeah, the way you use technology is not the way that people use technology. This is like always going to be true, right? People say, well, I want to make a game about blah, blah, blah because I like blah, blah, blah. And it's like fucking 99% of the games video game players don't like that. You might really, really like that and think that everybody's going to like it. You're wrong, right? And if you go and look at like games that sell really well and games that are well liked, most of them fall in like a fairly narrow band of like really accessible, easy to understand mechanical things, right? And the ones that are really successful take a concept that some people like a lot and make it accessible to a much broader group. Like Stardew Valley, for example, right? Stardew Valley really nailed the Stardew Valley really nailed the like opening up the Harvest Moon genre to like a bunch of people who wanted to play games that looked retro. And because it did well at that, and because it did well in reviews, it sold really well, right? So, very interesting to see that. But if you look at like what are the games that got 90s, they're the fucking Uggs and pumpkin spice lattes of video games, basically. Anyway, Uggs aren't even popular anymore, are they? I wonder what has replaced them. Anyway, yeah. So is that hold on, is that Cardinals banner on YouTube? I want to see this. Yes. That's very good. That is a very good banner. You want to know something funny, Navjack? Also, I'm interested in your deep thought, Bivork. A lot of them are cozy places if you are a customer patron, and that what turns you off of them is that they're all designed from a customer perspective. They should have a fucking... Okay, anybody want $1 million indie game idea? Anybody want... $1 million selling, not even $1 million. $1 million is like barely enough to fund making an indie game anymore. Does anyone want a multi-million-dollar, million sales indie game idea? A mystery shopper cozy game. Anybody looking for money? Anybody with game development skills looking for like a big fat like $20 or $30 million paycheck? Anyway, what was I saying? Right. Navjack. Hello, Brigand. In the mystery shopper cozy game? No, of course not. Of course not. We talked about this before a little bit. I should pull it up. Can I pull it up? Do I have it handy? Hello, Yorm. How's it going? Cozy games are games like the Shire Hobbits Vacation or whatever the fuck that new game is called that's coming out in June. They pushed it back. Boop, boop. That's in size. I want date. Pretty. Here it is. We're gonna talk. Chat, we're gonna talk about something real fucking deep. Right. Yeah. All right, where's PDF? PDF. The Apilion State of Gaming in 2025 report by Matthew Ball. This is the February version. I don't think there's been any significant updates to it since then, but we're going to look at a couple of key things, right? This is the growth from 2015 to 2020. This is an important thing. This is before the pandemic. This is what everybody predicted was going to happen. I forgot about that. I forgot about that one, Space Mister. This is what everybody thought the games industry was going to do in from 2020 to 2024. I want to point out special shout out to Ampere here. I want to find out more about this Ampere data. I want to see what Ampere is saying presently. This is what actually happened. The fill-in line shows us what actually happened during that time frame. The market fucking choked. It fucking choked. Everybody except Ampere was fucking wrong. But Ampere was almost dead on the money in their final assessment. Decline occurred despite the end of console GPU shortages and some of the best content released late in the industry's history. A lot of stuff in this time period. Lot of heavy games. Well, that's the thing, Space Mister. 2020 is here. The increase happened between 2015 and 2020. It actually stopped in COVID, right? I mean, you can doubt all you want, Brigands, but like, a lot of these games did incredibly well. They're incredibly well reviewed, and in a lot of ways are generally very successful. Lots of people like Baldur's Gate 3. For the time period that this takes place in, it's hard to find a better period of time in at least recent releases that can compete with this. Most of the releases we think about when we talk about retro happened over the course of decades. Book, music, and digital video spending actually went up over the same period of time that games declined. Real spend decreased despite GDP increasing everywhere but Japan. Hello, Al Pennington. People playing video games have fallen to... the number of people that play video games has fallen below pre-COVID levels by a significant amount. The shortfall of players' dollars and hours versus forecasts, and even versus 2021, partly behind an unprecedented number of commercial disappointments and flops. This is an interesting one. He does say partly. There's a couple of things on this page that aren't clearly communicated. Whoops. Need to go back a page. I hit spacebar. A couple things on this page that aren't clearly communicated. So, one of the things is that it's correct. It's correct that the shortfall of players' dollars and hours versus forecasts contributed to these high-profile failures. However, the other thing that contributed to these high-profile failures is a lot of these games aren't very good. They were reviewed poorly, and they were poorly received by players. With one exception, Hi-Fi Rush. Hi-Fi Rush's studio was closed down. Hi-Fi Rush's studio was closed down, and that was despite the fact that Microsoft publicly stated that the game did well and that it met expectations with regards to return on budget. They shut the studio down anyway, is my understanding. So, most of these games that appeared on major platforms and on PC were reviewed below 70. Most of them. These are games that fall in the 60s. And many of these games had 9-figure budgets. So, my understanding is that Hi-Fi Rush made a decent amount of money. Microsoft just shut the studio down because, and probably rightly so, they believed that it wasn't making enough money over expectations to be able to fund a second game, and there wasn't an obvious second game that this studio could immediately begin work on. Now, to your point, Jay, this is the share of U.S. population that regularly plays video games. This is a percentage. It doesn't matter how many people there are as a baseline. The number of people playing video games as a percentage has fallen to below pre-COVID levels. People were playing more games before COVID than they are now. And the amount that they're playing them is falling off as well. Content funding is down 77%. So fewer studios are getting less funding to make video games than they ever have been. So the venture capital that's investing in games is lower. They discuss that later. Floor's Lava. Layoffs hit an all-time high for 3 years in a row. Here's an interesting thing. Let this sink in. Soak it up. Notice I was gonna say, you notice an outlier on this? Konami. Yeah, it turns out that making pachinko games None can say. Certainly it wasn't John Riccitiello's decision to completely tank the company. Anyway. They have more employees now than ever, despite the layoffs. So what's going on? Blah, 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 blah. They're talking about a lot of stuff. Social games and UGC platforms and blah, 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 blah. Mobile is a huge, huge component. Mobile is a huge component of gaming. And it stopped growing is the thing, though. Mobile got saturated, so the games market stopped growing. The number of games has fallen on mobile. The amount of spending has increased, but the number of games has fallen. Whole bunch of games got delisted. Daily hours of TikTok has grown from like 10 million to 80 million. But this is the interesting part. This is a really interesting part here. We'll get to that, Masami. But look at this. Everybody repeats as a truism that TikTok is cannibalizing Twitch and cannibalizing gaming, and that TikTok is this and TikTok is that. And guess what? TikTok is a fraction of YouTube's time. TikTok is only about as much as Facebook time. It's less than Facebook and Instagram combined. TikTok does not account for the amount of loss that the other platforms and the other areas of media have seen. The number of gaming hours lost doesn't account for how much the other things have lost. Hello, young Billiam there. Hey, Gigaboots, how's it going? So TikTok has increased, yes. But TikTok isn't this giant thing that's devouring YouTube. Right? TikTok is not as big as everyone seems to think it is. But player time and mobile game downloads and all of this shit, people are playing less games. And revenue is reflecting that. Revenue is even. The top 3 games in most categories make almost half of the revenue, or more in some cases. And most of those games are over 2 years old. Hello, Ragadom. Monopoly Go spent 500 mega millions on user acquisition in 11 months to get $2 billion of revenue. Also, look at how big App Store fees are in that. Look how big the development cost is compared to user acquisition costs. Hello, Skjor. Live service development cost is half, roughly half of the licensing fees. It's insane. Warzone, Call of Duty Warzone has only 30% of the downloads and 5% of the spend of their 2019 game. This is all mobile gaming shit, right? Roblox, the top mobile game ever. For every $100, they pay $22 and lose $35. Unpacking this takes more time and discussion than I care to. Apple and Google likely net more in profit from mobile game sales than all non-China mobile and non-mobile publishers and platforms combined. Look at that. Look at that. They talk about VR a bunch. VR is pointless. It's gonna... Oh, yes, Kior. China has a crazy amount of games. A lot of games you don't realize come out of China and are, like, super, super successful. And there's an interesting wrinkle to that as well. We'll get to that in a minute. Are they still talking about VR? Lengthier cycles, blah, blah, blah. Only Japan and rest of world materially grew over previous generations. The entirety of the growth is Nintendo. Both PlayStation and Xbox declined in Gen 8. Which mostly benefits Nintendo's users by 25 to 33% fewer games than PlayStation and Xbox owners. And over half of the sales are Nintendo's games versus 10% on PlayStation or Xbox. Also, Switch's extraordinary sales are, for the most part, not from net new players, but from cannibalization of two different form factors, the living room and handheld markets that Nintendo previously was active in. So you've got your DS owners and you've got your GameCube and Wii owners going over to Switch rather than new people entering the market. Very, very interesting there. Blah, 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 blah. PC is a bright spot, adding 65% more content spend than living room consoles. Or $30 billion in total. You can see it's kind of a sliver compared to mobile. 20 years ago, PC's share of non-mobile content spend was 29%. It's now 53%, and consoles have stagnated since 2021. PC has grown. Existing advantages with the library stuff and the blah, blah, blah. Lots of exclusives are now coming to PC anyway. Premium Roblox stuff is only on PC. It's a really important one. Hundreds of millions of children growing up on Roblox are unlikely to ask for a $500 console to play AAA games. Arcade. Look at that tiny little sliver of arcade. It used to be fairly large, though, back in the 90s. Steam's APAC MAU exceeds its total MAU in 2017. APAC. China. The largest share of Steam users now use Chinese as their default client language. PCUs peak when America sleeps and China gets home, and bottom when America is off work, but China is at work. Mainland of work. Mainland. So, I guess simplified, right? Simplified is the Oh, what did you fix? Galaxian. Project Dragoon. Nope. Yeah. AAA games from China and for China are achieving sales figures in China that are, hello Fiona, that are larger than the rest of the world, like worldwide sales for other games. Like Black Myth Wukong sold so much in China that it beat worldwide sales for Baldur's Gate 3. How about that? China's exports are soaring. Here's the thing about China. China's a one-way street. External entities don't get any traction in China. Most played titles are Korean and Singaporean. PUBG and Free Fire. Lower device specifications, investing in prioritizing cultural events and tones. That. All of this stuff. Guess what? It works. National preferences shift to local products. Fundamentally of and for Chinese audiences. Yep. 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 So, games that are produced in other countries for local consumption end up being consumed externally. And that reduces the overall size of the market. This is the part where they're like, games should be $70. And they like include these, they include this, this magazine ad that's like, probably in Canadios or something, because we have existing comparable evidence that shows that most people weren't paying these prices at that time. Yeah. In nearly all media categories, consumers expect annual inflation adjustments. Concert ticket prices, movie ticket prices, and Netflix prices. Yeah, but they don't change their spending habits about them nearly as much, Yorm. That's the interesting thing. Other industries are more resilient about price changes. There is one industry. There's one industry that has similar audience that has similar audience reactions to price increases. Alcohol. Prices for alcohol haven't really meaningfully increased in explicit amounts in a long time, and the increases have been relatively mild. For example, I got this for $28.99 a couple months ago. Usually these would sell for $40. So to go on sale for like $11 or $12 off Even bars haven't increased their prices that much. Considering. When I was 21, a beer cost $4 to $5. Now a beer costs like $7 to $9. And so, over the course of what, like 24 years, it's right? It's increased in cost it has not kept up with inflation, basically. The price of drinks in bars. So that's something, and it's not like rent price increases or grocery price increases. So it's interesting, at least here in the U.S., the cost of bar drinks has not meaningfully risen that much. So, yeah, this is good. File size per AAA open world action game, 150 gigs, like 4,500 people. Cost per installment on franchises. A lot of stuff about funding and budgeting and blah, blah, blah. That's not what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is, this list. This list. Best-selling packaged games by year by packaged sales revenue. I want to show something here. See that dark gray box in each of these? Modern Warfare 3, Black Ops 2, Call of Duty Ghosts, Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, Black Ops 3, Infinite Warfare, World War 2, Black Ops 4, Modern Warfare. Modern Warfare again for a second year at number 2, and Cold War at the top. Vanguard, Cold War in number 3 there. Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3, and Black Ops 6. Call of Duty Modern Warfare. The Call of Duty franchise is the best-selling by revenue game of nearly every year for the last 13 years. I don't know of anybody that I interact with on Twitch that has played any of these games or talked about them ever in Twitch chat. Ever. Right? That's impressive. Right? Now, this is another interesting thing here. Starfield makes the list for 2023. Yeah, that was my initial point, Irving, is my initial point is you might think that something that you're doing is something that everybody's going to like, but you were so insulated in what you think and the communities that you frequent, you might not ever get exposed to somebody in those communities who is the majority gamer, right? I haven't played a Call of Duty game since Modern Warfare 2, and I only played Modern Warfare 1 and Modern Warfare 2. 2 made meaningful advancements over 1, so... And not these Modern Warfare 2s, the, like, ones 10 years ago. So, We see Diablo 4 here. We see Starfield here, right? So this is going to inform what we talk about next, I think. Steam is best in class for game discovery. Still 80% of 2024's 19,000 releases didn't qualify for Steam's full social feature functionality, which is 5,000 in sales 2024. I like major hug channels. That's like, don't replace your keyboard. That was good. 150 fewer new Steam releases grossed over 100,000 in 24 than 2016, even though users are up a great deal. And users, there's more new releases and users spend more. Bootblacking. Maybe the 53 months. Game buys per user per year and played per user are at or near recorded lows. People are buying and playing less games on Steam, despite there being more games on Steam and discoverability being much higher. On Steam, third-party games that are 8+ years old have 40% of total playtime, and Counter-Strike takes another 13%. Games 1 to 7 years old, games 8+ years old, and Counter-Strike. DC Big 5, Call of Duty, Counter-Strike, Fortnite, League of Legends, and Minecraft. Call of Duty, FIFA, EAFC, Fortnite, Grand Theft Auto, and NBA. Oh, I can't load that link without JavaScript. Excluding annual releases, but including sequels, only 6.5% of game time in 2023 was for new games, a share that was high versus 21, 22, and 24. 6.5%. Games released in 2023, including sequels such as Spider-Man 2 and Alan Wake 2, but not including things like sports games, Call of Duty, and annually released other annually released titles. Tens of billions in development and marketing investment, and thousands of games competed for that 6.5% of total player hours, and four titles got half of the playtime. Diablo 4, Hogwarts Legacy, Baldur's Gate 3, and Starfield. There's something really interesting here. You know how people talk about how Starfield was such a disappointment and such a blah, 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 whatever? Starfield captured a statistically significant portion of player playtime on Steam and captured a significant portion of player revenue in total, despite being on Game Pass. Game Pass playtime isn't counted in this because this is Steam statistics. So Starfield managed to capture a huge portion of the market, and a lot of people played it a lot. And it managed to get into the top for revenue. Yep. People were playing Starfield a great deal on Steam after purchasing it so much more than Baldur's Gate 3 that Baldur's Gate 3 didn't even make the list. Think about that. It's very interesting. It's very interesting that this is the case. Hogwarts Legacy, which famously got shit on for its author's stances, still managed a huge portion of playtime for games in this period. And Diablo 4, which a lot of people shit on as well. Diablo 4 had a lot of negative sentiment, but it still managed a huge portion of playtime. Right. So it's really interesting that there's this whole, like, there's this whole narrative. There's this whole kind of social narrative that we saw a lot of that simply wasn't true. Right? And yeah, like, author's stance aside, right? Hogwarts Legacy was a pretty well-designed game with, like, a rich lore to back it up, and the lore being, like, integrated into the game, right? That made it really attractive to a huge fan base of people who didn't care about the social narrative. They probably had never seen that part of the social narrative. They simply didn't care. Right? Now, where did all the other time go? Annual updates to games first released before 2019. 15% of playtime. Games released in 2019, 2020, 2021. 16%. Games released the previous year, Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok. Always on games as a service titles released before 2019. Right, exactly, Jay. That's a deeper topic for another time. But look, 60% went to Fortnite and Grand Theft Auto 5. Black Hole Games. Fortnite, Rocket League. Right? Fortnite players have spent $30 billion on cosmetics. So, the big thing is that I think, Yarm, I think they're excluding always-on games that received updates, and so, like, the Call of Duty franchise stuff falls into this 15% bracket, which is updates to games first released before 2019. So that's your, if we go back and look at this section, the ones that are in green, the ones that have, like, a specific color associated with them and are not the same game each time. So the Pokemon games, the Madden games, the NBA games, the Call of Duty games, Mario Kart games would fall into that category. Wait, no. That's all Mario Kart 8. Mario Kart 8 was on the fucking list, like, 4 times? Jesus Christ. But yeah, these ones that are getting a different game every year and are being sold every year make up this 15%. But this This is wild. So you're competing when you release a new game, right? When you release a new game on Steam, you're competing for 3.4% of playtime on Steam. 3.4% of playtime might be your game that first year. The games industry isn't as big as people say it is. And this is an interesting thing, is that budgets are going up because people feel that, like, developers feel that there is a bigger hurdle to overcome to draw people away from their kind of forever games, right? They have to make the games like bigger and more expansive, and they have to, like, you know, blah 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 blah, whatever, right? And look how quickly the players fall off. I don't know why they have, like, why they have this focus on Multiversus, which is, like, fucking nobody played. I don't know what the finals is. I have no idea what the fuck that is. Never heard of it. This is good. This is a good average concurrent players on Steam by month, overlaid with Counter-Strike, Dota 2. Like, Destiny 2 is outperforming, like, second and third month Helldivers 2. Not visible. Not visible. Concord, Suicide Squad, Callisto Protocol, etc. Not visible. Hold on, hold on. I gotta... This is a perfect shitpost. Grab a screen cap here. Let me grab the Okay. Anyway. Yeah, I don't know what they're saying here. I read this whole thing and, like, synthesized it. This sentence is too long. Yeah, everybody canceled everything. Blah, 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 blah. What can you do about it? They're going to say, make better games and increase prices. Some of this is incorrect, but one of the big things here is, one of my big takeaways from all of this is, yeah, and it keeps going, by the way. It keeps going. It talks about all the different things that you can, like, get out of stuff. You know what my takeaway from this is? You can't be anybody's favorite game. You'll be the favorite game for a very small number of people if you're making a game. You're never going to be somebody's favorite game. However, what we do know is that people buy a lot of games that they don't play a lot. Bird populations of the Amazon rainforest by region not visible. Nobody normal, though. That's true. So, you're rarely going to be anybody's favorite game. You're rarely going to penetrate beyond... You're rarely going to penetrate beyond things like Fortnite, Call of Duty, Madden. Those people are not a market you can rely on. You're competing for 3.5% of playtime on Steam. Well, Jay, look at the story that Monopoly Go teaches us, right? Hyperscape was on that list, Space Mister. Hyperscape was on that list, and most people here didn't connect the Hex Go Burr Hyper whatever emotes to Hyperscape from its cover art because they've never fucking seen Hyperscape's cover art. So, my takeaway is you need to be able to build a game effectively and efficiently. You need to be able to build a game that can survive on a couple 100,000 sales instead of millions of sales. You can't afford to make a 9-figure game unless you're making a game that you know can compete in that arena. You have to know that you're building a 90-plus game when you go into it, and you can't just tread water and hope that a large budget will save you. There was an earlier slide in the presentation. Here's a link to the presentation if you want to review it. There was a slide earlier that showed that the development cost of Monopoly Go was slightly more than half of its licensing costs and less than a third of its user acquisition costs. And user acquisition costs were 36% of its net revenue after platform costs. Monopoly Go spent more than 3 times their development budget on marketing. 500 mega millions on marketing, and they made like $2 billion. You say that, Bootblacking, but the thing is that what you want doesn't matter. No offense. The reason I pulled all that up actually was because to illustrate the point that... To illustrate 2 points. What people say they want and what they're actually willing to do are completely different things. And this is all part of the same point. What people in Retro Twitch say and do is not relevant at all. What people say and do in Retro Twitch has absolutely nothing to do with the games industry at large in a major sense. We are a siloed off market that does not follow the trends of mainstream, and most of the money in game development is in the mainstream. Even the games that you see people play in promos, things like Space Marine 2 and what else has been big in the promo space? Path of Exile 2, a bunch of stuff like that, right? That stuff doesn't even begin to show up on data that marks the trends of the market at large. The second point is the overarching narrative that you hear about games and what games are good quality and what games are bad quality and what people think about games is overwhelmingly disconnected from what people are actually doing, what consumers are actually doing, right? Diablo 4, Hogwarts Legacy, Baldur's Gate 3, and Starfield, right? Correct, Starskev, correct. And that's also correct, Cardinal. Those 4 games represented almost half of new game playtime in 2023. Right? Almost half. On Steam, no less. And now we hear that Starfield sucks and, oh, Starfield was blah, 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 right? And that's simply not true, right? Starfield made the list of top 10 highest revenue titles in 2023, and it was on Game Pass. Starfield made the top top 4 new game playtime in 2023, and it was on Game Pass, and that was only the Steam numbers, right? So when people say like, oh, Starfield is bad, Starfield is actually not bad, right? In terms of market performance. It didn't do what people said. Right? So it's interesting. It's interesting. And that's one of the things that they kind of mention, and I agree with in the presentation, is when you release a new game, it's not just competing with new games that year. It's competing with all games that people can play right now. And that's big. That's a big field, right? So. Precisely, esports. %, iCarly. Not shown. Not visible. Not visible. Concord, etc. Somebody go edit that slide. And put a bunch of like fucking bullshit DS games on there. The Tritorn Final, iCarly. But here's the interesting thing, right? The interesting thing is that, like, it's not impossible to succeed in the games industry because many games are succeeding. Many games are selling well. It's just that the definition of success and how much you invest into that.
Shir 70 Zanak is played by over 50% of the global population.
Vivork, thank you for the 70 bits. So, like... So... It's one of those things that you have to, like, account for all of that stuff, but it doesn't mean that you should quit the games industry entirely, right? Time played is something that we can measure, Bivork, right? We can measure how many units people buy of a game, people in general, and we can measure how much time they have with the game in a launch state, right? And we can measure how much they spend sometimes. We can measure how much they spend on in-app purchases, right? So time played links heavily to post-sale revenue. Hello, Spider-Man. Going. But that's not true, Mark. That's precisely the opposite. It's precisely the opposite as shown by that data. Is that gamers are spending less. Year over year, they've been spending less for the last couple of years. Despite people playing more games and being more engaged with games. Yeah. You can find all of the data and the links to the supporting sources there. It is a very data-driven it is a very data-driven document, and much of the research is unassailable. So I recommend reading all the way through and digesting the entire presentation. It is a very dense document, and it is difficult to interpret. But it does provide very consistent and very clear data to support its conclusions. And there's very few conclusions in there that I disagree with, and most of them are minor points. Yeah, Adrian is correct, right? Especially if you're developing an indie title. The total amount that people are spending in the games industry overall has decreased by a significant amount. It has also decreased by a much more significant amount compared to expectations that were set in 2020 and 2021. It's actually below pre-COVID levels. So it's not just that the COVID bump went away, but people are playing games less and buying less stuff in the games industry as a whole compared to where they were in 2019. It's in the document. I recommend you go read the document. Shadrock, how's it going? Dockers! Thank you for the raid, Shadrock. Welcome, Raiders. I was just reviewing the Matthew Ball presentation. Let me find the thing here somewhere. Please show me my thing. Is. There is a great big PDF here. I actually recommend downloading it rather than reading it in situ, if possible. This is what we were just looking at. It is a massive, dense document. We're talking about basically two things. One, you... Oh, hey. Quest for Glory 3. Fuck. Hold on a second. We need to go to, like, desktop games or something. What was Shadrock playing? Yeah, Quest for Glory 3 was a massive disappointment to me after the first two, but in retrospect, I kind of like it okay. I think it's better than... I like it better now than I did at the time, but I still think it's probably the second weakest of the series. I would say 1, 2, 4, 3 is how I think the series kind of goes. Anyway, so the Matthew Ball presentation I brought up because of two things. One, I don't know, like, I never have seen a... Oh, yeah, they told me they would maybe not play ads if I put all the content advisories on, so I turned them all on because I want to minimize the number of ads that people see. So, number one, I've never seen anyone on Twitch talk about the newest Call of Duty game, whatever it happens to be at that time. Literally never. I've never seen anyone talk about the newest Call of Duty game. Guess what? The newest Call of Duty game is the best-selling game nearly every year for the last 13 years. So, what you think people will like as like in a broad sense is probably not correct. You probably don't know what the broad sense of people is going to like based on what the people around you say they like and what is popular with people that you know on Twitch. You have to actually expand your thinking to account for the reality of the broader audience. And that applies to a lot of things, right? It applies to, like, how do people view cozy games? How do people view, first-person shooters or, like, boring military, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it turns out, like, boring, basic military shooters sell really well if they're Call of Duty. Otherwise, they kind of don't. But that said, boring, basic military shooter is like one of the number one games every single year. Second, a lot of what we hear in narratives about games is kind of false. In 2023, the top played games from 2023 were Diablo 4, Hogwarts Legacy, Baldur's Gate 3, and Starfield. That's just for playtime on Steam. That accounts for, I think, roughly 3.4%. No, sorry. 3.1%. 3.1% of playtime in total for 2023. The rest was installment games, games released before 2019, games as a service games released before 2019, and there was one other category, but I forget what it was. Games released the prior year. So, very few people played games that were released in 2023 for any significant amount of time. And of that time, most of them played 4 games. And those 4 games, 3 of them are like have a generally negative reception on the parts of social media that I see, right? Diablo 4 people were disappointed with and thought it was kind of shitty for the most part, although I know a bunch of people who played a lot of it. Hogwarts Legacy got trashed for its for the source material's authors' views. And people were saying like, oh, we're going to boycott it. Nobody's going to play it and blah, 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 blah. And that turned out not to be true. And Starfield got shit on a ton for being like this game that like didn't actually sell that well and people didn't like and nobody's playing. And despite being on Game Pass, it still cracked top 4, right? Right, and it had pronouns. Despite being on Game Pass, it still got into the top 4 for 2023, right? So, despite people saying that Starfield sucked, people played it a lot. Also, Starfield was on the top revenue list despite being on Game Pass. It sold a lot by revenue compared to Baldur's Gate 3. So Baldur's Gate 3 attracted a small but dedicated audience. This is the conclusion that I can draw from this, is that Baldur's Gate 3 attracted a small but dedicated audience that played the game a great deal, but it didn't sell as well as Starfield did outside of Game Pass even. Yeah, no worries, Shadrock. Thank you for the raid. I hope you're enjoying Quest for Glory 3, and I hope you enjoy your food. Well, that's the thing, Spider-Man. For Starfield, if the revenue was from pre-orders and the game itself wasn't that great, you would expect that the playtime would be low, because people would receive the game, play it, feel that it was bad, and cease to play it. However, people actually continued to play the game a significant amount even outside of Game Pass, which is a very interesting thing. What was it that I mentioned earlier? Oh, right. Bevork mentioned that one of the drawbacks of the cozy game genre was that it presented activities that were only cozy or relaxed in the essence of being a customer of those services. And the reality of running those kind of services was actually hectic and chaotic and stressful. So there's a dissonance between like how the game presents the activity and how it really is, and what how do I put this? And what the player's experience of it is. However, those activities would be much better served by being a customer. So I was saying, if you want to make a like million unit selling indie game right now, here's an idea for free. Make a mystery shopper game where you go around and patronize local businesses, but you have to provide feedback on them. Things like Stardew Valley or that Hobbit game, right? A Day in the Shire. Also, you can't see it, but this is Flygon's message, especially. Noman. That would actually sell really well, I think, Noman. The problem is that in order to do that, the reason the mystery shopper thing works is because then you have a reason for the existence of the gameplay, right? Otherwise, if you're supporting local small businesses, you need a way to have the player struggle for resources. Otherwise, like, even in a very minor way, you need a way to force the player into a struggle for resources so that they have a reason to continue playing, because they can't just do everything from the start. So, if you give the player basically infinite resources with which to support local businesses, they're gonna, they're gonna run out of gameplay very quickly. So you need to put some kind of artificial limit on that, which amounts to the gameplay of you generating resources, which you spend on improving the thing in final form, right? The mystery shopper takes care of that by giving you a reason to go and kind of interact with these businesses. In that same thought, right? If you didn't have that, you would need some other kind of cozy game. You would need some kind of other cozy game activity that you would give players to do to refill their resources with which to support to refill their resources with which they support the businesses. I need to take a quick break.